Now, our opinions and beliefs, these things that we were just talking about, they don't define us. They don't define who we are. This is a facade. So like I said, these things that we claim to be our personality or who we are on the inside, blah, 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 they're not who we are. As you've probably noticed, and hopefully so, as you've aged, your beliefs and opinions have changed. And this is life, this is growth, this is how we should be. Nothing should ever be concrete. We are flow. That is what we are. We are flow. We should be flowing. We are fluid beings. Our minds are fluid. This is just a vessel. But the ego likes to feel important and employed. And so it takes its little self and starts inspiring fear in you and self-judgment and judgment of others. It is so much easier to not judge yourself and get caught up in that when you could just judge other people. You know what I mean? And so it may also turn up feelings of inferiority, you know, and self-hatred, because the ego is an image of you that you have of yourself that gives you a sense of identity, whether positive or negative. So that is going to come from the things that you tell yourself and the things that people have been telling you about you, which, by the way, who knows you better than you know you? You know you better than anybody else does. Nobody else has your lived experiences. Nobody else has these inner childhood wounds. How could somebody tell you who you are? But when you're a kid, you listen to people. And it's so funny because I think we just assume as children growing up that people are just good people who have their mental health in check and are taking care of themselves and being good people. But when you're a kid, you don't know how to be aware that, hey, maybe I shouldn't listen to this person because they have some stuff they need to work on, because we're kids and we don't know that. And you've taken all of these things that you've been telling yourself and that people have been telling you about yourself, and you have decided, or at least your ego has, so by proxy, you have accepted these things as the truth. And the ego likes the truth because it's something. It doesn't like this unknown. It needs something to grasp onto. So it likes those kinds of things. Even if they're not true, it still likes them. So let's say you're in the car and you're driving home from work and you're sitting in traffic like you would if you were here in Austin, Texas on the daily. No matter what highway you're driving on, whether Mopac or 35. If you're from Dallas, you understand this 75 issue. And you see this dude in this like big truck over here who's like swerving in and out, switching lanes all the time, when we all know when you switch lanes, the lane next to you is gonna move. Hello. And you get mad, you get angry, you feel rage, you feel irritated. That's your ego. Your ego has its little grips on you, its little tiny hands on you. And you're not having these thoughts, the thoughts are having you. And if you want to be free, you have to understand that that voice in your head, that little ego dude up there, or gal, or whatever you want it to be, it could be whatever you want. That little voice inside your head has created this whole thing. This irritation, this feeling upset that you feel, that's not you, that's your ego. And you're having an emotional response to that voice, because that voice is telling you little stories like, screw that guy, like, I'm trying to get home, like, why are you more important? And then obviously anything that makes you feel triggered, that is going to be your indicator of the places where you are still wounded. Triggers are places we should pay attention to. They will inform us of some things we haven't been looking at. it'll show us that shadow self part of us. It'll show us those inner childhood wounds. I know that when I get triggered, I'm not actually upset with the situation at hand. Maybe a little bit. But I'm not really upset about what's actually occurring in this present moment. What I'm upset about is that it's bringing up these emotions and how it makes me feel like something I've felt in the past. The ego is gonna overcompensate in these kind of like stressful situations where we're feeling really fragile, and it's gonna do a few things. It's going to force you to emotionally react. Maybe not like physically confronting somebody, but like you're gonna feel something in your body. You're either gonna feel like really sad or really angry. I feel like those are the two. Those are the two feelings you might feel if you're feeling, if your ego is overcompensating. The other one is false confidence. So, sorry, Danny's barking again. False confidence is overcompensation, obviously. And I guess like something I think of is like when people fight, they tend to get overly confident because their ego has taken over and decided like, I know what I'm doing, let's do this. But like really you don't know what you're doing, but your ego thinks that it does. It's overcompensating. Black and white rigid thinking. So it just exaggerates all of the things that you normally are, your ego normally is. But when you're feeling really fragile, really triggered, your ego is going to pump up the jams. You know what I mean? And it's going to reject any idea that conflicts with our beliefs, which really just makes us feel worse. This is our ego protecting us. Constant comparing to others, judgment of others, mocking them, insulting them, threatening them, and then analysis paralysis. So I don't know if you've ever felt this before, but I have. It's where you're having like obsessive thoughts. Like, have you ever been so angry that you can't do anything? It's like your fight, flight, or freeze. That stress response in your body just makes you like, it just stops you in your tracks. You can't do anything. It is exhausting, really. Every time that has ever happened to me, I felt so emotionally exhausted afterwards. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? Junie. Shh. Now the reason it's so important to do this kind of work, we're not trying to like kill our ego or get rid of it. That's not what we're trying to do at all. We're trying to be friends with it. We're trying to become aware of it, because I feel like when we can become aware of it, it can't control us anymore. It's sort of like Voldemort, you know? Once you are aware of something that may seem kind of scary or uncomfortable, it's not as scary or uncomfortable. It's not as. Because you see it, and it can control you when you're aware of it. You know what I mean? And the reason we want to be friends with it is because our ego is our friend. It's there to protect us. It just hasn't been given the guidance that we need to be our best selves. And the reason it hasn't been given guidance is because we didn't even know it existed. We haven't even been aware of its habits. We only feel the repercussions from its actions. And you know, I'm not saying you can control your ego. You can't necessarily control your ego, but you can listen to it and decide for yourself how you want to move forward, or what is fact and what isn't fact. Also, what is fact? So let me just throw that existential thought in there for you guys. What the heck is fact? And also, Hannah really needs a haircut, just saying. Yeah, so our ego is not who we are. So who are we if we're not our ego? We are our highest self. We are our true nature. We are us. Me. I'm in this vessel. Our ego can only run rampant if we allow it to. We are our conscious awareness or attention. And this is how we're able to have the ability to view ourselves and all the different parts of ourselves, is by being consciously aware of ourselves and our ego. And you can think about your thoughts. This, like, for some reason, this blew my mind when I heard it or read it. You can think about your thoughts. You don't just have to think. You can think about your thoughts. And that's what you're doing when you're bringing awareness to your ego, is you're hearing your little ego chat, 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 you know, and then you can think about those thoughts. You don't just have to take those as fact. You can look at them and say, hey, you know what? I don't agree with that. I'm gonna go this way. And then you can reflect on your actions and be like, hey, I'm not gonna do that next time. That didn't really vibe with me. That didn't really lift me up. That didn't really support me. I feel like one of the best things you can do when it comes to becoming consciously aware of your ego is saying, did that come from love? If that did not come from love, then that is not me. That's my ego. Because I would never do anything, my body, that's what we are. We are love. I, love, would never do anything that didn't come from love. And so anything I've done or might do that doesn't come from love, that must be coming from my ego. And I gotta get my ego in check. Without an ego, you can decide how you feel, what you think, and how you choose to respond rather than having your ego do that for you. And the nature of being, and because we're humans, we can have an ego and have thoughts and stuff. That's what makes us a really cool being, creature of this planet, is that we can think. So the nature of being, us, it's unbounded. And this is what I mean by I don't really like labels, because they just confine you. They define you. I cannot represent the self. You can't use knowledge to represent the self as a closed form, meaning a fixed and complete set of concepts, because we are so fluid, because we are ever changing. And that's the way it should be. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like labels, because I don't want anything to be so solid in what it is that it has a label. There must be a dimension of self which is forever out of reach of concepts. You cannot conceptualize me because I am so fluid. I cannot be. And that is what being whole and complete is to be constantly fluid. Never being attached to our identity. Never being conceptualized, if you know what I mean. But as long as we're listening to our ego and attaching these concepts to our identity, then we can never be whole. We can never be truly free within ourselves. And the ego is what's getting in the way, and that's why doing this ego work is so important. And now we're gonna go through the 5 steps that Dr. Nicole LePera lists to start doing some really awesome ego work.